With a three-way race for the Premier League title, many are forgetting that we have an epic top four battle on our hands as well. And that is arguably a three-team battle as well. They say it is the most expensive place in football, worth about £132 million. So today we are going to debate who's going to get that slot and all the fixtures of the three teams left in the race. Let's get it. Get straight into the episode then. We're talking about all things top four today. As it stands, if you've not been checking the league table, we have got Aston Villa in fourth, Spurs in fifth, and Man United in sixth at the minute. They are the three teams that we believe are in this race. You may tell us otherwise. If you think there's more teams already, now's your time already. Hit up the comment section. Let's get straight into it. We're going to discuss all the teams today and their upcoming fixtures. Villa, as it stands, 30 games played, 59 points, 3 clear of Spurs. Let's talk Spurs. Let's talk Villa to start with. How do we rate Villa's season? Because people have been critical of Emery, but you've got to argue with literally 8 games to go, they are in a genuine conversation here. Some would say favourites to get in the Champions League. That is absolutely mad. How do you guys think they're doing so far this season?
Yep, I think Villa are very much in the driving seat. They're fourth for a reason. They deserve to be fourth. They've beaten Man City at home. They've beaten Arsenal at home. They've beaten Spurs away. Of course, it didn't go very well at home against Spurs, but they're there and they're there on merit. I think a lot of us had them in the top 7, but I think top 4, I think a lot of us doubted it just due to, I think the way Emery could be at times. Look at that. They get a brilliant result against one team and then go and get thrashed by Spurs at home 4-0. That's just exactly what they do. And that's probably their big Achilles heel at the moment. But I think any Villa fan would have bitten your hand off to even be in the conversation. It doesn't look like they're going to fall worse than 5th. It doesn't. So, they've got to be very proud of where they are. And of course, the table doesn't lie. You deserve to be where you are.
I think it's probably, the best sort of like progress for a team in the league. They've got to be the happiest with what they've seen this season going forward, even more so than sort of Liverpool, who just missed the top 4, get in massively in the title race. I think Villa's sort of progress is less expected than what, say, Liverpool would have been. So I think it's brilliant. Emery's done great, and I think all the Villa fans love him and love a lot about the team. I do understand where you're sort of coming from with the Emery sort of. He's sort of very good at home, and his away record's normally the one that lets him down. But I think at Villa, you don't need to be as consistent as you are to win the title. But you can be the consistency that they are, which is still very good, to be in the top 4 race, and at the moment sitting in that position that everyone wants. So it's been brilliant for him so far.
Yeah, I mean, just before George, you chime in. It's the owners have done well. They've spent the money, they've backed it up, and they've brought in the manager that plays to those players' strengths. Okay, Emery was always going to get Ollie Watkins flying. Get good out of Bailly and also Diaby as well. John McGinn, he's got those players at his disposal. He did it at Arsenal. He had Aubameyang flying, got goals out of Lacazette too. When he was at PSG, he really got a lot of the Mbappes and Neymars, even though they should be able to do it themselves. He has that thing with his abilities. We're not looking long term with Villa yet, because if they want to push for top 3, top 2, I don't think he's the one that's going to do it. But if you want a manager who's got a chance of winning a cup, i.e. at the moment in the Conference League, he's perfect for him. He's perfect for where they want to be to lay those foundations. So deserves full credit.
Yeah, I mean, Villa, let's be fair, have been outstanding. Like, I think you're spot on with when you say that, Jamie. The team that has shown the most progress this season, and probably the team who will be most proud of their achievements so far. And the criticisms, I know what you're saying, Reece, about Emery and the inconsistency, but he's punching above his weight. Like, he is. It's as simple as that. Yes, they have spent money, but so have the other teams. Man United have spent $1 billion, Chelsea spent $1 billion. Spurs have spent money as well. So when you look lower down the table, Newcastle, richest club in the world now, there is teams with more money than them that they are, in my opinion, they are still punching above their weight. And the inconsistency, is fair, but like they're 5 points off Man City. Aston Villa are 5 points off, arguably the greatest team in the world, holders of the Champions League. That is absolutely insane. So, despite everything bad you can say, I think Emery is absolutely killing it. And you're right, you'd almost be disappointed right now if they didn't get top five at least. Obviously, we'll get onto that. We'll go through all the fixtures for all the three teams in the race. But yeah, really, really impressive. They've got the squad. They've shown they're a big team and a threat. So, our Villa fans, regardless of how this plays out, I think you should be absolutely buzzing right now.
Here's a question then. With Villa are at the moment, and this is Villa fans, if you're watching, you're listening, do put in the comments too. And of course, if you support any other club, do Villa at this moment in time, would they take a Conference League win but sacrifice that top four spot? Or would they rather the top four? Bear in mind as well, there's those doubts that they might get hit with some financial restrictions due to the losses they made. The owners would probably want the top four because they need that money. What do you think they would do? Do you think they're going to, when it comes to it, they're going to sacrifice it and go all out for the Conference League? Or do you think they're just going to settle for that top four?
I mean, if I was a Villa fan, I'd say take the trophy every day of the week. You know, we've done podcasts already in the season about West Ham, the sort of West Ham debate, right? 100% those Villa fans want a European trophy. Yes, it's not the big one, we know that, but there's a lot of merit in winning the conference. There's a lot of merit winning Europa. So I think absolutely, if Villa can win a European trophy, even if they drop down and people call it a bottle, but that's very unfair. If they end up in European football next season and they win the European trophy, my word, they are absolutely buzzing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. You've got take the trophy. The trophy means so much more than playing in the Champions League. I think I just don't understand the argument for getting top four from the owner's perspective and the money perspective. Okay, but from a fan's opinion, it should always be to win the trophy because they've not actually won a trophy since I think
1996.
1996.
League Cup win against Leeds. I believe they won 3-0. There you go. There's a bit of football trivia there for you. So Villa fans, do let us know.
So it's been a while. It's
nearly
all of our lifetime, really. That's sort of how long it's been. So I wouldn't understand anyone who would say I want to play Champions League football over winning the trophy, because winning it, the final sort of, you've got a massive occasion, a massive memory. We're coming top four. It's just not as big of a deal, in my opinion, than winning a trophy.
Yeah, and there's an argument they could go again next season. I'm not saying they're going to be, favourites to finish top four, but I said earlier in the season, you look at their squad, I actually think it's pretty good. I genuinely do rate their squad, so I don't think it would be that surprising if they go again next year.
But there's also no guarantee of that. That's also
no, of course,
because it's not it's just facts. The Conference League is the lower of the European trophies. So let's say they do finish fifth and it's not a Champions League spot, they're in Europa. That's harder to win than this trophy. So if you don't go and win this trophy, are you going to realistically win Europa? It's a way that I think you take the trophy now and then worry about next season. Because I think winning trophies can push you on to try and win more. And it's sort of like, I think West Ham's a good example where they came very close to getting, I think they go the semi-final of the Europa, then win the conference, and now they're in the quarters of the Europa. That if they continue to get in the competition, they'll continue to do well because they've got that belief around it, and that's what I think you need. And winning a trophy in that gives you such massive belief, and that's why I think that's better for their progression than Champions League football, where you might dip off a bit like Newcastle have. And I think Newcastle fans probably still want to see their team win a trophy more than playing the Champions League.
Hey guys, very quick one. If you've got this far in the episode, one very small favour we ask, if you could please help us out and hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, and as always, it's absolutely free. This means you won't miss an episode, you'll always be up to date, and of course it helps us grow the channel. Appreciate your support. Back to the video.
Yeah, I'd agree. And let's move on before we get into the sort of fixtures and dive in a bit deeper. Let's talk Spurs. Again, we did a podcast earlier in the season, and many people were talking about their title credentials. Were they in the title race? You had Ange Ball, a lot of praise for the guy. How do you guys rate Spurs this season? It feels to me somewhere in the middle still of like, I guess naturally when you say a team's in the title race and then they're not, it's then going to feel like a disappointment. But no one really, well, maybe we did at the time, but no one really thought Spurs were going to win the league, right?
No, and I think we need to understand when we say where they've been the last 2 years or 3 years. I think under two managers who are very notoriously outspoken, probably left a bit of a horrible atmosphere, left the club on its knees, so to speak. So they needed someone to come and pick them up. They've got players there with the ability, and he's come and done that. Do I agree with his Newcastle entertainers style of play? Yes and no. I think it eventually runs out of steam. But at the moment, it's exactly what they need. Because let's be honest, when they were going 1-0 down, they weren't exactly coming back, were they? Now they are. So I think they'd be delighted with where they are. Again, I think they'd feel disappointed when they went and beat Villa 4-0 and then lost to Fulham 3-0. That was unacceptable, and it makes you think, how do you, up and down, one step forward, two steps back sort of idea. But again, Spurs fans would have been delighted with where they are. Disappointed with the cup performances, I think. But overall, they've got a foundation there to build on. They've got some good players. I think, it's looking good again. But I think the summer will be interesting to see what they do there. But they're in with a shout, and they could easily overtake Villa.
Yeah,
I think it's actually in Spurs' hands to get the top four because they've got the game in hand. They win. They're on the same points as Villa. And then I think it should be more in their hands than what Villa is because Spurs have, been there and done it and got the top four places. So I think they've got that a little bit more experience. Okay, completely different manager, but you still got some of the players there doing it. With the sort of title talk, let's be honest, any realistic Spurs fan was like, we're not in a title race, we're in a top four race. So I think they're exactly where they want to be, and I think if you're going off what I said, whether it's in their hands, they're exactly where they want to be. They're probably a little bit better because it's the first season of Ange. If this was say next season in your second season, you'd expect it to be like that, barring big injuries and other sort of aspects. So I think they're exactly happy with it, and I do think Spurs fans at the moment are, because of what Reece was saying with Mourinho, with Conte, the style of play was just crap and not enjoyable for them to watch. And it's not like they were going and they didn't win things. That's where some people sacrifice it to win things. They weren't doing that. So them to see exciting football, because if you talk to Spurs fans, one of their happiest sort of points was sort of the red nap where Bale, destroyed Inter Milan kind of thing, because it was such attacking good football. Poch had it quite a lot of the time as well. It was attacking football, and that's what Spurs fans like to see. So I do think that's where they want to be, and that's why I think they're going to be more than happy with where they are.
Yeah,
nearly a season into Ange Ball.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, and look, you lose your best player, you get a new manager in. As long as you're not regressing, as long as you're not going backwards, like you have to take that. And again, you could argue maybe the bookies will disagree, but you're right. Maybe Spurs are favourites with the game in hand to finish in the top four. Again, we've not seen the criticism always has been of Spurs, the lack of progression and the lack of really competing for trophies, which they've not done. But Levy will certainly be happy if they can nick a top four spot. From a business perspective, he'll be buzzing. And yeah, but you're right. A bit of attacking football, Reece, you mentioned, I think, games that Spurs would maybe last season or for the last 10 years, maybe go 1-0 down at home and just lose the game. But they're fighting back. And although that's not sustainable, I don't think personally, we are seeing a little bit more character, a little bit more belief in this Spurs team. So I do think, as you said, fans have got to be happy. Um, in terms of, let's just finalise with Man United. We'll touch on them, and before we get into the fixtures and the stats, if you like. Many people, we've obviously said it's a 3-horse race. United are in the thumb now. Currently, United are 11 points behind Villa, though. So, I guess to answer the question first and foremost, do we actually think United are even in this top 4 race? 11 points is a lot. And then if you use that, just if you use that 11-point logic, then you could argue Aston Villa in the title race.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not mathematically impossible, is it? Villa are, in both, in some aspects. United are as well. I think out of those 3 teams, it wouldn't shock me if United just turned it on. But as we saw against Brentford, they let themselves down, going 1-0 up so late to then conceding again in stoppage time. Like, to go up in stoppage time and concede in stoppage time is very poor. Again, you don't know what team's going to turn up. They're more than capable of beating Chelsea and Liverpool in the next 2 games. They are. But then you wouldn't be shocked if they go away to Bournemouth and lose. So they're a bit of an enigma at the moment. They can do it, and obviously the teams have to absolutely mess up because they don't play any of them. They don't play Spurs or Villa. But it's going to be tough. They're capable, but it's going to be tough.
Look, it's definitely not in their hands. They need the other 2 to both drop points. But when we come into the fixtures, there's definitely opportunities. And one thing with United, it's sort of a positive and a criticism. They're not playing that well, but they seem to pick up a lot of points. Sort of the Brentford game, yes, it was a draw in the end, and it's disappointing for them because they scored in the 96th minute or whatever it was, and you concede moments later. That's just, you're distraught after that because no matter when you score that late, you expect to win the game. But they could have been 8-0 down or something like that because they got battered. But it's like they easily could have just won that game through that one moment, and United have done that quite a lot under Ten Hag, where they've not performed well, but picked up a 2-1 win, picked up a 1-0 win here and there. Because you've got to look at it, they're not scoring the most goals out of these 3, but they're also conceding the least. I think United have a way of not conceding that many goals. I think they struggle when they come against the top sides with that. So when they've got to play Liverpool and Arsenal, I think it could be they could get absolutely battered in them games, but they could perform exactly the same level and beat sort of Bournemouth while having a poor performance. So it's an odd one, but United once again, it's sort of like the experience they have as a squad is better than Spurs, better than Villa, because they've actually been playing. Well, I think nearly all of them have been playing Champions Leagues. You've got Champions League winners in that squad, so I still think they're the best experience for it, but are definitely in the worst position.
Yeah, and they've shown their ability this season, as we've said. We've probably said it genuinely 5, 6, 7 times. They get outplayed. They deserve absolutely nothing, and yet they're winning games. And again, you can make the case for both sides of that argument. They're getting lucky, or it's hustle and good mentality, whatever you want to call it. But law of averages, I tend to say, if you can't keep getting lucky, eventually the stats will catch up with you. And it's a game like Brentford that I think evidence that, where they're getting 30 shots. It's the most shots Brentford have had all season in the game. You're getting, Brentford aren't great and haven't been great, let's be fair. And they're having 30 shots against you. And then somehow United are winning in the 97th minute. So, bit of a weird one for United. But let's get straight into the fixture then, and let's actually do a bit of a deeper dive now. We'll start with United since we're talking about United. So their next fixtures, I'll just read off the next 3 in the league. So you've got Chelsea away Thursday. You've then got home to Liverpool Sunday. So a big couple days for United really there. Then they go away to Bournemouth. Again, I might as well just quickly run through the rest. They've then got Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home, Palace away, Arsenal at home, and Brighton away. my initial response to that is you're 11 points behind Villa. Looking at those fixtures, I don't think they're great. Chelsea, they always beat us, so maybe that's a draw 3 points. I don't see them beating Liverpool at home. I know they have just technically done it in the cup, but that's a different ball game. I mean, I don't know. For me, I don't think they can finish it fourth. That's my initial reaction to looking at these fixtures. Can you guys make a case to the contrary for them looking at these games?
Yeah, like I said, I think they've proven that they can turn up. I think the next 2 games will be a big litmus test for that. I think if they probably get 1 point, they'll be happy. Realistically, obviously they need 6. Bournemouth, I think they'll beat Bournemouth. I think they'll beat Sheffield United. I think they'll beat Burnley. I think probably get a draw at Palace or a late winner. I think Brighton at the end of the season is a tough one. I mean, I think they could beat Arsenal at home. I think that depends on how that goes. But Brighton away, Brighton could be fighting for that 7th spot, which they're only 2 points off. So not easy for them. Like I said, they're more than capable of doing it. I think what we should ask is, would they happily take 5th, 6th if it meant they went on to win the FA Cup? Because they've got Coventry in the semi-finals. So what do you think United fans who have had a gluttony of trophies and have won the League Cup last year, would they take the FA Cup win over a top 4 finish? That's a question United fans do ask. I think there'll be mixed comments. I'm not sure what they would take.
I think that's a tough one, actually. I was just thinking.
I think it's more realistic that they get the FA Cup win, but with the FA Cup win, they've got to beat City or Chelsea in the final, and that's a bit bragging rights that they won't get if they get top 4. So, and also they lost the final last year, so it's something that I think matters in that. But with the actual fixtures, and just going back to that, even though we've mentioned Chelsea away, Liverpool at home, Arsenal at home, Brighton away, before we get on to Spurs and Villa, I think they've got the best fixtures out of the 3. And I don't think they've got great fixtures by just saying that. I think they're slightly better than what Spurs and Villa have. And I know, Jordan, you're saying it's 11 points. We've got to remember there's a game in hand in that. So let's say it's 8. 8, I still think is catchable. I know Reece won't like this, but City did this to Arsenal last season at this point. There was 8 points behind, and we still won the league by, 4 or 5 points, something like that. It's definitely possible. It's harder when there's 2 teams, but both, I don't think either team we're going to talk about have good fixtures. So it's definitely a chance to slip up for both.
Yeah. It is harder, though, when it's 3 teams. That is the big difference.
Yeah. When it's out of your hands, especially. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, look, 2 seasons under Ten Hag, 1 League Cup win, and a potential for 2 FA Cup finals, potentially winning one of that. That's good. Bearing in mind that there's still players that need to shift out. I don't think they could be that unhappy. Yes, you'd want more, but I think that's decent. For 2 years, that's more success and more finals than Mikel Arteta's done. Let's be honest, it's true. So
yeah,
I think I'd rather be 5th and actually having a League Cup title and a potential FA Cup final when we are now, because we're not going to win the league. So I think I'd rather have that.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting one. For me, I've got to say, I think the Champions League thing for them, finishing bottom, by the way, like that should cancel one of those trophies out. Like you got to remember that is an absolute disgrace to finish bottom in that group. So that is a factor as well. But United fans, hit us up in the comments, let us know, because I do think that's an interesting one. We've got to move on, of course, though. Let's talk Spurs now in terms of fixtures. So I'll just again quickly scan through next fixtures. So they've got West Ham away, Forest at home, Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, Liverpool away, and then Burnley at home, and then Sheffield United away. Jamie, maybe you're right.
And
they're not great fixtures.
They've also got to fit in City at home as well.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's not even listed.
That
Yeah.
game's got to be rearranged, which I believe will be on the final week of the season. That'll be midweek, final week of the season. City, hopefully for me, will still be in a title race. So that's a huge game. So this is what I'm saying. They've got such
Yeah.
difficult fixtures, and that's where there's like even West Ham away. West Ham love that game. That's their derby because they don't actually play Millwall often. That's their derby. That's the game where it will be buzzing at West Ham. So it's a game that, even though it looks better on paper, is a big. It could be as tough as playing City and Liverpool. Then you've got North London derby. You don't know what's going to happen with that. Spurs will be up for it, obviously, just to stop Arsenal winning the title. But it's fine margins in these games, and that's why it's such a struggle to write off United when you read out these fixtures. Because Newcastle away, once again, another one like it.
Yeah, I think as we know, Tottenham are capable of beating anybody in this league, home or away. They're also capable of losing to anybody in this league, home or away. But I think the tricky thing for Spurs is that their games, they are the team that could impact so many seasons by the end of it. Because West Ham are fighting for that European space. Nottingham Forest are fighting relegation. Newcastle fighting for Europe. City fighting for the league. Arsenal, Liverpool fighting for the league. Burnley, Sheffield United facing relegation. Yes, granted that Sheffield United look like they're down, but they might want to end the season on a high. They gave Spurs a run for their money earlier in the season. So that's a big thing for Spurs to have to juggle. These teams are going to be up for it in some capacity. It's how they handle it, because they've got their own agenda they want to succeed. So they overall have the biggest influence on how a lot of teams will finish, which is quite interesting for them.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look at these fixtures. I might have to change my mind because they are tough. They genuinely are tough. Like, you could make an argument here for Spurs not getting a point for like 4 weeks, or maybe get 1 point. Genuinely, yeah. I think the City game as well will influence things a lot. Right. Let's see how Villa stack up then. Let's see how Villa's fixtures stack up. So, City away in the week. You've got Brentford at home. Bear in mind, there's then Europe as well. They've got Arsenal away, Bournemouth at home, Chelsea at home, Brighton away, Liverpool at home, and Palace away. Again, it doesn't fill you with much confidence. Obviously, they're in form, they're one of the top teams. But there's a lot of sort of stumbling blocks in those fixtures as well. So I'm struggling. I'm struggling. Like, City away, they're going to go and get the point. Probably not. Like,
this is it where you said that Spurs might not pick up a point for 4 games. Villa are in the same aspect. I'm not saying they're going to. They might. I'm hoping they don't get a point off us at all. But it's sort of, they're capable of doing it, but they're also capable of getting absolutely nothing from these games because they're all big games, and the pressure might get to them. But I do think the one thing that these other United and Spurs don't have is the European games. That is a big factor. They may go, you know what, I'm going to rest 1 or 2 for the, I don't know who's playing. Let's say it's Chelsea at home for that game. I'll rest 1 or 2 for that game because they can play midweek. And then they might go and drop points to it. So it's, Emery's got to balance it out right. But
just for that, sorry to jump in, but they've got, looking at the fixtures, Lille on the 11th, Villa on the 14th, Lille again on the 18th.
You said Villa, Jude.
Sorry. Lille, Arsenal,
Yeah.
Lille, and then Bournemouth. So they've got 4 games in 10 days. That's a
where you
problem.
get competitions.
Yeah, this is where the whole thing, like, what are they going to sacrifice? Lille are not going to be a pushover in that game. They're a decent side. I think it's Francesca still manages them. He's a decent manager. That'll be a tough game for them. So they might put their eggs in one basket here, and go for it. Because if they do get through, then they don't have the semi-final until, I believe, it's the 2nd of May. So that's then sandwiched between the Brighton game. So it will be, after they play Chelsea, they'll have that game, then Brighton, and then it'll be before Liverpool. And then, of course, they'll have it after the season ends. So or just before either A. That's the sacrifice they might have to make. They can go all out and go through all of them, which I don't see why they wouldn't. But what if they get a few players injured against Brentford or Arsenal, for example? It's when the questions come in for them. So they've got a juggling act to do, but they're in a nicer position because they're probably not going to fall lower than 6th, and they've got that trophy to go for. So for them, I think they're quite happy with that. But yeah, it's a tough one for them to manage and balance because they could be 1 or 2 injuries away from an absolute disaster.
Yeah. And let's, just before we do conclude with our actual predictions now, based on everything we've just seen, there is the other quick factor to consider, that it could actually be 5 places that get Champions League this season. And if that is the case, obviously this does change the whole debate, but that is a huge key sort of wild card element to consider. This all could be conjecture, and actually the top 2 teams could end up getting Champions League. Irrespective of that, we'll obviously assume that's not the case. Let's give our predictions. We've seen the fixtures. Reese, we'll come to you first here. Who are you going for? 4th, 5th, and 6th? Let's hear it.
I think my preseason prediction was United 4th. I think sticking with that might be a bit silly. I think Spurs are going to get it. And then I think then United will claim 5th. I think Villa will drop to 6th.
All right, I'll go with mine. I actually think I've kind of changed my mind as we're doing the pod, but I actually think it's going to stay exactly the same. 11 points for me. I don't see United turning that gap with their fixtures. Spurs are Spurs, and again, you've got to remember they keep going behind. They keep losing these games. You can't keep coming from behind every single week. And Villa, the way they're playing, looking at their fixtures, I do genuinely believe they are going to get Champions League football, and that is incredible. So yeah, I think it's going to be boring and stay exactly the same how it is now. Jamie?
Well, it looks like we're not all agreeing fully then, because I think Spurs are going to get it. I think Villa will then drop to 5th, and I think United will stay 6th. I think there's still too many hard games for United to come up and catch up with the points. But it's sort of like I don't want to completely write them off, but I still think it might just be a bit too late for them to do that, and they may just have to go. The FA Cup will do, but there's no guarantee on that either. So could be trophyless and 6th, which I think isn't a great season for United. And I think Spurs and Villa will be happy with theirs if they get Champions League football or win a trophy, in Villa's case.
There you have it. All of us disagreeing, which is quite good to see. Look, we've had our say. We want to hear from you now. Hit us up in the comments. Which one of us is right? We've given you 3 different variations there. Surely one of us is going to be correct. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.